Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the disc golf subculture, and welcome to another edition of the Zen Disc Golf Podcast. We have a very special show for you today, coupled with a different format from what we might be accustomed to. This is the first edition of the one-on-one series from the podcast as we kind of strip down the episode to allow for some longer form interviews, so I really hope you enjoy. Now, don't be too concerned. Tim and Chris will be back to discuss all things disc golf related, but today it was my pleasure to sit down and talk one-on-one with Disc Golf Pro Tour Director and Vibram Disc Golf Manager Steve Dodge. We had a great conversation about both top-down and bottom-up growth of disc golf. We dissected the explosion of the talented pro disc golfers. We talked the mental side of the game, and we discussed Vibram and why Steve thinks rubber is where it's at. Steve Dodge has an incredible resume, which includes the PDGA Tour Director of the Year 2009, like I said before, manager of Vibram Disc Golf, co-designer and co-owner of Maple Hill Disc Golf Course. He was a PDGA Board Director from 2006 to 2008, co-founder of Marshall Street, founder of Prime Discs, creator of the Birdie Bash, and tour director of the Vibram Open. Wow. But before we sit down and talk to Steve, we have a $20 Infinite Discs gift card to give away to one of our dollar sponsors. The May gift card goes to, drum roll please, Adam Kubiak from Pennsylvania. So congratulations, Adam. By now, you've already received your $20 gift card to Infinite Discs. Spend it wisely. If you'd like a chance every month to win a $20 gift card to Infinite Discs, have your name mentioned on the podcast as a sponsor, and feel warm and fuzzy about supporting a show you love, please click the show notes or head to zendiscgolf.com and click one of our PayPal donation links. This podcast is officially run by dollar donations from people like you who love the show. And the money goes to keeping the show rolling with great content, hosts, and guests like Steve Dodge. It also affords the giveaways and for us to give a little bit back to the disc golf community for all that it has given to us. A dollar might not be able to buy happiness, but it sure greases the wheel of this podcast. As a matter of fact, this podcast is brought to you by some of our amazing, generous podcast dollar contributors: Lynn Henriksen in California, Ryan Lewis, Ohio, Roger Crane in California, Joel Bautista in Texas, and Benjamin Wonders in Ohio. Now, let's get on to episode 27, and let's talk to Steve Dodge. Steve, it's an honor to speak with you today. You definitely have one of the longest resumes in disc golf of any of our past guests. But can you give your listeners a little bit of a bio, who you are, how you got started in disc golf, and where it's taken you?
Absolutely. And thank you very much for having me on, Patrick. This is it's indeed an honor. And Zen and the Art of Disc Golf is a book that has positively affected a lot of people. So I'll just say thanks for the things that you do, and I look forward to being a small part of it.
That's too nice. Thank you.
With that, basically, I started playing disc golf in 1987 down at Mary Washington College. A bunch of hippies living in Fredericksburg, Virginia, taught me the game and taught me the spirit of the disc and the culture of the disc, and the fact that you play with honor and you play with respect, and you play with your opponents as opposed to against them. I started as a TD in the late 90s, moved up to Massachusetts in 2003, built Maple Hill Disc Golf with my cousin Tom and Dave Jackson, who is now our course pro. In 2004, we held the first MSDGC in conjunction with my other cousin Jason, who runs Pyramids just down the street. Leicester, Massachusetts has become sort of a mecca of disc golf, especially for New England and hopefully for the world. But at least in our little region, I think we've got something special. So the MSDGC ran from 04 to 07. In 2008, I went and talked with Kevin Donahue at the at Quabog Corporation, which manufactures golf discs for Vibram, which manufactures shoe soles for Vibram at the time. They now manufacture golf discs. And Kevin was very excited to have Vibram be a part of the growing disc golf world. And in 2008, we changed the name to the Vibram Open, and it is still known as the Vibram Open, and has grown to be one of the premier events in our sport. And I'll go ahead and say I'm very proud to say in 2009, I was voted by the PDGA as the co-TD of the year.
That's awesome.
Oddly enough, it was awesome. And the great thing is that I tied in the voting with UC Marisma.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that's a little fun fact. And he never knew who he tied with. And we were talking, we're doing planning for the 2017 season. And we were talking, and I said, hey, did you know that we tied in 09? It was pretty fun. So being TD of the year was a pretty big honor. And we just keep trying to improve from that point forward. So Maple Hill Vibram Disc Golf served on the NEFA and PDGA boards of directors, basically from 2003 to 2008. Jason and I formed Marshall Street. I left Marshall Street and formed Prime Discs. Maple Hill obviously has a pro shop at this point. With Vibram, a couple of the big things that I did, probably I'll go and just do one. The big thing that I think I did with Vibram as far as growing the sport is the Birdie Bash, which is I took the ace race and just added the disc and added a shot and hopefully added some fun.
Nice.
So that's over the years we've had over 10,000 people, well over 10,000 people compete at Birdie Bashes, and I think there's been somewhere over close to 500 individual events. So.
That's awesome. I also want to point out that it's really cool that you got your start in Virginia, I'm from Virginia Beach, and I typically never talk to anybody disc golf related in the area on the podcast. So there are Virginians out there.
A big shout out to Nova and the Spotsy Disc Golf Club, and I guess we can say some good things about Newport News in that area as well.
Hey, that's the course I play probably most often. Newport News Disc Golf Course. Yep.
It's a beauty. You
mentioned, and also on the Pro Tour website, you talk about spreading the culture of the disc. And I think that's a really neat saying. Could you elaborate the culture of the disc?
The culture of the disc for me is something that the hippies of Fredericksburg instilled in me when I learned the game. And I think that's the right time to instill the culture of the disc, is when people are first being exposed to disc sports. Mm-hmm. The culture of the disc is respect, honor, playing your hardest, but not cheating, not playing, not breaking any of the rules. It's all the things that make hippies great. It's peace, love, understanding, respect, and having an open mind to be able to listen to other people's points of view. In playing Ultimate, which is where the spirit of the game is written right into the rules. It might even be the first rule. I'm not sure. When you're playing Ultimate and you have a disagreement, it's really important to be able to step back and listen to what the other person is saying, so that you guys can figure out what exactly happened. In the heat of the battle, both people want to be right, and you want that disc. But there are times when it's more important it's always more important to get the call right. And the way you do that is by telling someone what you think happened, and they tell you what they think happened, and you have to be able to listen to them.
Sure.
So being able to listen and having respect, that's That's what culture of the disc is all about for me.
Respect, honor, and self-officiating is another word that you used. I definitely like that. And being, with the book that I wrote, I have never heard the term culture of the disc, but it sounds like there's this underlying unconscious wave between disc golfers that we have this like-minded, especially the ones of us who just have a real passion for the sport and growing the sport, have that culture of the disc or Zen disc golf kind of. It seems like this unconscious wave that's underlying disc golfers today. How important do you think is the culture of the disc to sustaining the sport and also growing it?
I think the sport would grow whether culture of the disc is embedded in it or not.
Okay.
One concern that I have, and the thing that makes the sport special for me, is the culture of the disc. So if I'm going to have a small hand in helping to push this sport forward, it's important to me that we push it forward in what I'm going to go ahead and say in the correct way, and we embed the culture of the disc in it.
Okay.
I don't think culture of the disc is going to be the be all end all reason that disc sports grows. Ultimate is a phenomenal game. It is very fun to play. Arguably, it's even more fun to watch. I had some of my best days of my life playing Ultimate. The 4 games in a row, and when you're done, you can barely walk. And those were just the greatest days. And playing with Spirit was a part of that, but the athleticism and the competition was a very fine drug.
Sure.
The disc golf, it's in a similar way. It is very fun to put a disc on a little bit of an ante and pop it out there and have it turn to the right and then have it get around that tree and come back left towards the basket. Mm-hmm. And just seeing that shot actually happen, you just feel it in your gut, and you just know that you just did something really special. So the game itself is addictive and really fun. For me, we have to have the culture of the disc in it. Otherwise, there's no reason to grow it. You might as well just go play whatever. You go play pickleball. But
pickleball, I love it.
So the concern that I have is, as the Pro Tour develops, as the World Tour develops, now we have 2 businesses who are staking their claim that they are going to grow the top end of the sport, which invariably will grow the base of the sport as more and more people watch it and see that the sport is legitimate. Mm-hmm. So this is the moment when the culture of the disc has to be embedded deep. And when people learn about disc golf, as probably 4 to 10 times the number of people that know about disc golf right now is about to happen, they need to see the culture of the disc as an embedded part of the game. And with that, we will be able to grow the sport as it's naturally going to grow, and then improve society through giving people a game that actually has a very positive culture built right into it.
Sure. So absolutely.
That's it for me.
Absolutely. And let me ask you this question. When we get the sport in front of more and more people, obviously it is important that these players that we put out there have this sense of respect, honor, self-officiating, this culture of the disc. When you see a player, especially one with a lot of cameras on them, a professional player, just lose it out on the course, do you have a deeper sense of disappointment as somebody who has done so much to grow the sport?
Wow, what a really great question. And I'm gonna, if you push me, I'll come right back to that question. But okay. I'm going to start away from that with my answer. Okay. But I don't want to be a politician here. I don't want to avoid that. But I want to start somewhere else just to frame my answer.
Sure.
I called someone the other day and gave them relatively bad news about their Birdie Bash water bottles. And I think that they were in a bad place because they were having a bad day. And in the discussion, things went from my heartfelt apology and solution as best I could give them to just quickly down a bad spiral. And I had to step back and recognize, okay, I gave this person bad news, and they were probably already, well, I learned later, they were in a bad place. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times when the way people react in different ways, and a lot of times it's because they're in a bad place at that moment. And it's really hard to control our emotions. And that's something that comes with maturity and time.
Sure.
But, so just the first thing, when I see a reaction that is not the best, it's an absolute negative reaction. Mm-hmm. You recognize, number one, that these people are absolutely passionate. You recognize, number two, they're not always in a great place. They might have just had 3 shots in a row, have really bad kicks, and they're just emotionally negative. And then we happen to just watch the straw break the camel's back. I don't quite know how to, whatever.
Yeah.
We just watched the whole thing. We just watched this whole thing just explode right at that moment. And invariably, a hole or two later, you give the person 5 to 10 minutes, cycle through it, process, and then things are calm again, and they're back to being a normal, standard human without that emotional wreck that just happened.
Sure.
So that doesn't necessarily excuse what happened. And absolutely, we don't want to see people swearing and kicking bags and headbutting trees. But but I do understand where that stuff comes from.
Yeah.
And it's important to be understanding, but we also need to be responsible for our own actions.
Sure, and for these players, it bears mentioning that there is a lot riding on those discs. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
These guys make their livings off of it, and we can go out and I go out with my friends and I miss a putt. It's not a big deal, but that's not a $2,000 putt. And so
right.
it's easy to step back and judge and be just a Monday morning quarterback. However, I just use it as an opportunity to. I've watched some of these players fall off the rails. I think is a good term when they miss a shot and they beat themselves up over the shot. And therefore, you can just watch the next couple of shots, come off the rails as well, because they've beaten themselves up over the shot. And then you watch somebody else who's just a class act, and they miss the putt, they miss a close putt or something like that. And then they take a second, take a breath, and move on. And you can see that they don't come off the rails. And you can visibly watch this on YouTube, that if you beat yourself up, you kind of stay in that zone. And I know I've gone off on a tangent here, but I was just watching a few tournaments last night, and I was like, wow, you could just watch them come off the rails because they're beating themselves up. And I was just wondering how you viewed that, because the aspect of growing the sport related to the Pro Tour is getting disc golf in front of as many people as possible.
Patrick, I want to interrupt on that 1 second.
Sure.
And I think you hit on something that's absolutely huge, and I suspect Zen and the Art of Disc Golf hits on it as well. But the concept of being able to manage yourself in a positive way and get through negative situations. I heard an interview with Katrina Allen I feel like it was within the last week, and they asked her, you are on a roll. What is going on with you that is causing you to do so well? And I don't know if she was, if there was a book or a person that was involved, but she said that she's working very hard on her mental and emotional game and being able to stay in the moment and not let things, as you said, snowball, right, and get out of control. So that is 100% something that if disc golf is your occupation, you need to be able to manage that and get through that as quickly as possible. So just
absolutely. Yes. And that's what we talk a lot about the Zen Disc Golf podcast is a lot about the mental game, and also about bringing the little guys out there that are really growing the sport. But let's talk about the Pro Tour for a little while. How did you get started with the Pro Tour, and what's the mission?
Wow, this is really, how did I start with the Pro Tour? I guess the way I really started with the Pro Tour was back in 2006 when I was serving on the PDGA board of directors. I felt the national tour should be more focused towards meeting its mission than it was being than the way it was being executed. The kinds of things that I recommended that were eventually voted down were MPO and FPO only. Let's get a real finals that has some can get some excitement into the national tour. Mm-hmm. Let's and we all know this, but it's amazingly difficult. Have a geographically sensible tour, and if an event doesn't want to play ball, then the event isn't going to be a part of the tour. And you have to be willing to say that for a year or two before people recognize that you're serious, and then they'll play ball if they want to be a part of it. So I basically thought that the national tour could be done in a better way, and I proposed that and got voted down. And I guess in 2009, or maybe it might have been 8, I don't know, 8 or 9, I was a part of the national tour committee. I think I was actually the head of it, and we came through with some suggestions to the PDGA, and you basically could have done a replay of the suggestions and the result. Mm-hmm. And that got me to thinking maybe this isn't the best avenue. And so somewhere along the order of 2011, I started crafting the concept of the Pro Tour, and basically taking Maple Hill Open, the Vibram Open, taking the Vibram Open and trying to map that kind of thing around the country. And then how would you make this financially sustainable and make it something that people would absolutely want to watch, because there is a very exciting season leading up to a tour championship. Mm-hmm. So fast forward to 2015, mm-hmm. Nate Heinold gave me a call and said he'd like to. He knew that I was putting the Pro Tour project on hold probably until 17, and he called me and said, "Why don't we do a small version of it in 16 and see how it goes?" And so the plan was to make 16 a soft launch, and we did. We got together with Jeff Spring up in Smuggler's Notch, who runs the Green Mountain Championships, and then Jim Van Lannen at Sober Cup, and Kel Laviska up at the Majestic. And we looked at that and we said, well, we have a nice five event tour. We'll tack on a finals, and the tour was born. We had all the pieces in place, and then once it probably took less than 2 weeks for all of the events to fall into place and for us to get all the scheduling done. Once everybody buys into the concept that the tour is bigger than any individual event, and the tour makes each of the individual events better than they would be without it, then it's easy to get people to work together, and that's what we've had. We've had very good success at getting some very well organized, very I want to use the word powerful, but I don't think that's quite the right word. But some very good people to pull in the same direction and get the Pro Tour happening this year.
Okay, awesome. So basically, from what I'm understanding, for you, the growth of the sport is definitely tied into top-down kind of growth. Prior guests on the show have mentioned that sponsorships are a huge part of growing the sport of disc golf. Where do you feel the truth is in that?
I agree with them entirely. And I'll go ahead and say, I'm going to guess that past guests have also said something that I believe in, which is without grassroots growth, the sport's not going to grow either. Mm-hmm. You really need to grow both. The thing that I see the Pro Tour being able to do is when the kids in elementary school, middle school, and high school learn about disc golf for the 2 to 3 weeks that they study it, which is really great because it's in a lot of schools now. Mm-hmm. But they learn about it for 2 to 3 weeks. They know there might be a course nearby, but there's nothing driving them to continue on with the sport. The people in the sport right now play it because they love it. It's a counterculture sport. To make it a mainstream sport, people need to be able to look at this sport and say, wow, this is a legit sport. Paul Macbeth is playing this game and making a living playing this game. Ricky Wysocki, this is what he does for a living. He plays disc golf, and they want to emulate these guys. And they say, wow, Ricky can hit a 70-foot putt. And they say, wow, Paul can park a 480-foot hole. I want to do that.
Sure.
And it's, in my opinion, adding just that small level of legitimacy to the sport will help these kids look at the sport and say, that was fun. Now I'm on to pickleball, or as opposed to that was fun. And now I'm going to go play disc golf after school. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to mention pickleball a whole bunch. However, in high school, I played pickleball for 3 weeks in a row. I was the school champ. And
I've never heard of this pickleball.
Well, there you go. Now we're giving them a plug, but after it was done, there was nothing. I mean, that was it. You couldn't go play pickleball anywhere. There was no pickleball leagues or tournaments or pro tour. And so I just forgot about the sport entirely. And that's, it was a really fun game. It's just, you have a hard paddle and a wiffle ball and you're hitting it over a volleyball net. That's a tennis net height. So it's just an indoor version of tennis, if you will. Okay. But it's a great game, but I had no reason or desire to continue playing it because there was nothing there. Right. After that 3 weeks in gym. So I wanted the pro tour needs to make disc golf different than that. We need to give people, wow, there's a course. Wow, there are touring pros. Wow, this is a legit game. I'm going to go get some disc and play. Right. Right. So when I mentioned sponsors earlier, one of the things I was going to key into for you. I skipped right over that. I should have hit on the. It's okay. I went away from that. I'm sorry. Do you have anything? Let me. I do, and I think it's critical. Okay. So we have all of the people that are excited to play, but without sponsors and partners, the Pro Tour and the World Tour have no chance of success. Mm-hmm. We can't just compete for our own money. We need to bring in sponsors from both inside and outside the sport who look at us and say, wow, they've got 10,000 people on site. Mm-hmm. They've got hundreds of thousands of people watching online. And so the partners see value and they bring that value in the form of cash to the tours. And that's how these things are going to work. And along those lines, I would love to hit on, if I can, the fact that the Pro Tour is succeeding in getting people from outside the sport to come into the sport and recognize it. And, that was one point that I was going to make, because one of our earlier guests stated that NEFA and Discraft aren't sponsors, they're manufacturers. And we need larger companies like that. And he mentioned Coke, Pepsi, but automobile manufacturers. And obviously they're not pipe dreams, but they're, I mean, I understand we're reaching towards that, but he says these are the sponsors that are going to drive the money coming into the sport. And I wanted to see where you thought that was, being the tour director for the Pro Tour. So I'll agree on one level that NEFA and Discraft are manufacturers. However, they are also sponsors, NEFA and Discraft. And I'll go ahead and just say, for example, Prodigy and Daredevil and Legacy and Vibram and DGA are also manufacturers and are also partners of the Pro Tour. NEFA is not a partner this year. We're talking about getting them on board for 17, and those talks have so far gone very well. So I have confidence that we'll expand our manufacturer base. But these people are both manufacturers and sponsors. They genuinely give significant product and significant money to events. So I think it's not true to say they're not sponsors, but it's kind of that black-white mentality. They're either this or they're that. Can't be both. So, but the challenge is to get people outside the sport to see us as something that is valuable. Mm-hmm. And the first person that came aboard is Tribaloid, which is a disc golf video game company. Mm-hmm. We've talked to them on the show. Oh, fantastic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alan is a great guy and is building a great product. Sure. Then we also brought on Keen Shoes. We also brought on Night Eyes, the company. They make flashlight, those light up golf discs. Very cool discs. Yeah. So many other amazing products. I now have their little Steely on my dashboard, and probably everybody in my family has got one because they saw it and couldn't live without it. Zuka Kart, which is a kart company that started making disc golf carts, came on board. Awesome. And they are, I call them a peripheral disc golf company. But then we have other companies that are absolutely not in the sport, like Darn Tough Socks, like Silly Pint. We've got another company that we're going to be announcing on Tuesday, but I'll give you the scoop. It's Blue Orange Games is coming on board. And Blue Orange Games is the company that makes the game Spot It. If you're familiar with that game.
I'm not.
But my family loves to game. We are all gamers. So when Blue Orange came on board, my daughters were just ecstatic. They were just like, oh my gosh, I want to go play Chicky Boom, and we're going to go get Goblet Gobblers out of the closet and play that too. and now, so whenever anybody comes to the Pro Tour, part of the festival is in our activity tent is going to be a bunch of tables set up with Blue Orange Games. So the fact that we have people coming to these events, hopefully with children, is going to, now the kids have something, Dad, I don't want to go walk the 2.5 mile track of Maple Hill. Can I stay here and play some games with Mom?
Okay.
And then, so Mom and the kids get to sit down and play some very cool games, and Blue Orange Games gets some street cred because they're in disc golf. So we've got some really nice people from outside the sport who look at us and look at the eyeballs that we have and absolutely want to give to get some representation and get some street cred with the disc golf crowd.
Right on.
So I'd recommend that everybody out there go out and buy some Darn Tough Vermont socks. They're the only, I'm going to go and say it, they're the only socks I've ever seen that have a lifetime warranty. Silly Pint is the only company that makes silicone pint glasses, and they'll be available on tour. And then obviously Blue Orange Games, go get a great Blue Orange game for your family.
Awesome. I do want to rewind real quick, and because we talk a lot on the show also to people who are working diligently to get disc golf into schools and raising money to get disc golf into schools. And you mentioned that, hey, if we get disc golf in school for 3 weeks and then the kids forget about it, then we really haven't done anything. Where do you see the solution lies in the bottom up growth for youth and disc golf in schools and the like?
I actually think that disc golf in schools through the EDGE program, through the PDGA endowment program, those guys are doing a very good job of getting disc golf in schools, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. The two things for me: number one, it has to be accessible. So there needs to be a course that, as John Heaton would tell us all, it needs to be a good course with good signage that doesn't have lots of thorns on it or trash, something that a family can go out and be happy to be there. So you need accessibility of good courses. And in my opinion, kids need something to look up to. And so the other missing piece, in my opinion, is the Pro Tour.
Okay, awesome. Let me ask you this. This is just kind of off topic, but since you've been playing for so long, and I've been playing since the mid-'90s, I had a long hiatus, but I've seen the sport just grow hugely, even within the past 5, 6, 7 years, just incredibly, and thankfully. But since you've been in the sport since the mid-'80s, have you seen the skill level of these young disc golfers just explode? And what do you attribute that to?
When I started, yes, and yes is the answer. When I started playing, the longest hole at Pratt Park, I think, was 350 feet. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, I could throw about 350 feet.
Right. Okay.
I don't think that's a shock. At the time, when we did distance competitions with my Discraft Eclipse, mm-hmm. I was able to throw a little over 400, and I was a big thrower at the time. And then people came on board, and so then the next guys come out and they see, wow, I could throw 400. Next thing you know, they're 5 years younger than me. They can throw 500 and then 600, and then you get 1,100 and whatever it was. But, so what these guys, it's really exciting because the kids see what we can do currently, and that's their low bar. Like that's the minimum that they're going to excel to. I was talking with Paul Macbeth probably about a month ago, and I said, Paul, is it exciting for you, or is it sad for you knowing that there are 10 to 15-year-old kids who are watching you play, who your level of play is going to be their standard.
Right.
And that they're going to expect to hit 50% from 50 feet. If
that
not,
dude
if not
can
more.
putt. I tell you what, he can putt. It's incredible.
So he's setting their, I'm getting little goosebumps actually. He's setting their level of expectation. And I said, how are you going to feel in 5 years when these kids come up and all of them are as good or better than you? And he is a true competitor and a true champion, because his response was very telling. He said, they're not going to be better than me because I have significant improvement left in my game.
Right on.
So I was thrilled to hear that, but it didn't touch on what I was thinking, which was the kids are going to be amazing. And it's you just see, he's setting the new low level for the future.
Yes.
If you want to be the best in the world, you have to be at least as good as Paul Macbeth is right now.
So you believe that as the competition of the pro players has risen, as their skill level has risen, it's risen the baseline for everybody else.
All players, not necessarily the Paul Macbeth and Ricky Wysocki's, but the critters up in the north and the Dutch Napiers in the south. Those guys are all bringing. People see them play. It's regional. At Maple Hill, probably about 5-10 years ago, we didn't have anybody that was local that could really play. But as those people develop, that becomes the low bar, and people excel to beat that. So. Yeah, as all of us see all of us playing better, all of us play better.
Right.
So, and then especially the kids.
And that really reminds me of the old tale about runners. When they didn't believe that anybody could break, what was it, a 6-minute mile or something like that? And then somebody came out of nowhere, broke it. And then within the next couple of years, it had been broken like 4 or 5 more times or something like that.
Right.
It's really funny
as soon as we know it's possible.
Yes. I'm all about psychology and all this. That's why that's the whole purpose of this podcast. It's really funny that you mentioned that 350 was your top throw and the furthest hole on your main course was 350. Because my main tip for any newer players that I play with, they say, how can I get more distance? And I said, well, let's play the long tees. And they say, well, I don't want to play the long tees because I'm still going to be further away from the basket. Well, you play the long tees, a couple weeks in a row, and then you go back to the short tees, and now you're putting it right at the basket because you've taught yourself that you have to reach that adversity level and not relax into it. So that's really funny that you said that.
100%. If you want to learn how to run faster, you run down a small incline, a small decline, and you're forced to take longer strides, and your body gets used to flying down a hill that fast. And then when you run on flat, you want to take those big strides still. Yeah. You just have to push yourself, and then there you go. Nice.
Do you think also that more courses or longer courses and or equipment, the variety of equipment that we have out now, has also taken that competition up?
Of course. Now, having said that, I'm not sure that a wider wing is a direct correlation to a longer throw. Mm-hmm. However, I will say that for some players, having a wider range of discs makes sure that it's possible for everybody to find the disc that fits them perfectly.
Okay.
Back in the day, I had a choice of an Eclipse or whatever the other disc from NEFA was at the time, and the Eclipse was the best disc for me at the time. Mm-hmm. But I had a choice of 12 discs total, so it was the odds of finding a disc that fit me perfectly were very small. And now we have discs designed to go farther. But that doesn't necessarily mean that those discs are going to fly the farthest for each person.
Right.
So that's one thing that when I teach new players, I say, start with a putter and a mid, and don't ever throw the mid.
Right.
And then once you've got the putter dialed in, then you can go ahead and throw the mid and graduate. And there's going to be a point where the wing gets wider and you think it's going to go farther, but it doesn't go farther because you're not throwing in a way that takes advantage of all of that wing's attributes.
Exactly. As my good buddy Tim Stewart, Mind Body Disc, who's usually on the show, he always says, well, if that's disc to speed 13, you better have an arm 13 to make it do what it's supposed to do.
100%.
Yes. That's actually a good transition to talk about Vibram for a few minutes, if you're willing.
I'm absolutely willing. I'd love to do it.
I'm a huge fan of Vibram. My favorite disc so far has been the Track. How did you get involved with Vibram?
So you're not very happy with me for discontinuing the Track.
Nope. As a matter of fact, I was online last night buying up all the tracks that I could find.
So the way that I got involved with Vibram in 2007, a good friend of mine, Aaron Alla, who at the time was a chemist for Quabog, which manufactures the shoe soles for Vibram. Mm-hmm. He told me to go to Vibram and see if they would sponsor our tournament. And I had been turned down for title sponsorship by 23 other companies in the area and, I guess nationally. And I had a pretty well honed speech at that point. And the fun thing was I went into this room and there were 15 people around the room. And Kevin Donahue was the owner. Mike John Frito was the chief operating officer, and he's now the CEO. And Kevin looked at Mike and said, "Mike, can we make a golf disc?" Mike looked around the room to his team, and I don't know if words were spoken or if he had just gotten nods. But he got affirmatives all the way around. Aaron assured him that he could develop a compound, which came to be known as X-Link, which is a cross-link polymer. But basically, when everybody nodded, my 15-minute presentation was useless at that point because Kevin just looked at me and said, "We're in." And he said,
Nice.
and it was at that point there was really very little negotiation to do. They just said yes, and sometimes the pieces fall into place. And you could argue that I was a blind squirrel finding a nut. And I came home that night and I told Misty, I said, if there was ever one company that I would love to work for, it was this one. These guys, everybody was on point. Everybody knew exactly what their role was, and everybody was very confident and capable of doing their role. And the next year, when I asked Kevin to sponsor the tournament again, the Vibram Open again, he said, "We will sponsor it if you come on board as a consultant to help us design discs."
Nice.
And that was a very great day.
Sure.
And the next year, when I said, "Do you want to sponsor again?" he said, "Yes, if you come on board full time."
Nice.
And I successfully landed my dream job and brought Vibram into the world of disc golf.
Thank you very much, sir. We love Vibram. And as a matter of fact, can I tell you, this is a funny story, and it also shows that it's a psychological story here. Vibram makes and manufactures a lot of the soles to our fire boots. I don't know if you've listened to the show before, but I'm a fire lieutenant for a fire department. That's my main job. And then, writer and podcaster on the side. But can I tell you how many people I brought on the disc golf course who, prior to me introducing them, would have never played, by just saying, "Take a look at the soles of your shoes. They're made by Vibram. Vibram makes disc golf discs." And once they link it up, it's like there's no link there other than rubber, but they're like, "Oh, well, if they also make, disc, maybe I'll go out and throw some." So I don't think our boots are PDGA approved, but for some reason it's added legitimacy to the sport.
You're absolutely right. It's very easy to say that Vibram is the largest company in the world that makes golf discs. Mm-hmm. I'll go ahead and say golf discs is a very small percentage of Vibram sales. So yeah, it does. And I'll finish this with one fun story. Invariably, I go to Bowling Green AMs, I'll go to AM Worlds, I'll go to Pro Worlds. Invariably, someone will come up to me, see the golf discs, and they'll look at me and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, I just found out. Did you know Vibram makes shoe soles too?" And I just think it's so funny to think that I can now successfully argue that disc golf is helping shoe sole sales.
Yes, absolutely. So for some of our newer players out there who basically, throw a Nova or a Discraft or whatever they can find at their local sports store, what makes I know what makes Vibram different. That's amazing. And can you tell us what makes Vibram different?
If I only get to say one word, I'll say rubber. Mm-hmm. If I get to say more words than that,
as many words as you like.
The things that rubber gives you is what makes Vibram discs is a competitive advantage of Vibram discs. Vibram gives you great grip. Rubber gives you great grip. Mm-hmm. Rubber gives you great durability. You don't have to compromise on anything. It gives you the optimal of both worlds. The cross-link polymer that Aaron Alla developed back in 2008, it took him 66 trials of figuring out exactly what the right blend of chemicals was for the rubber so that it would have phenomenal grip, phenomenal durability, and then also get the inherent memory that comes from having a cross-linked polymer.
Right.
So that is, in a nutshell, that is the reason that Vibram discs have a competitive advantage. And obviously, just you can design a disc to fly any way out of any material. And Vibram's developed the lace, which when it came out was rated as the farthest flying disc on the market. We've developed a full line of putters, which obviously don't fly very far. And then we've got a complete line in between and left and right. So the discs can fly any which way you want, but if you want to have consistent grip and high durability, the rubber makes it possible.
And there's a really cool video on YouTube of the manufacturing process for Vibrams. I'm going to include that in the show notes as well, so everybody can take a peek at that. You brought it up for my own personal knowledge. What happened to the track?
So the back in the day, when we were designing discs, we designed the ascent and the track, which were our first fairways. And one thing we did not understand at the time was that as the rubber flows out of the mold, it invariably holds the mold open a little bit.
Okay.
And so it's called the flashing, and you're doing 250,000 pounds of pressure down on this, and it's baking at 480 degrees for 15 minutes. So there's a lot going on there, but you still can't quite press the mold all the way closed. And so what happened with the ascent and the track is that the flight plate was, I think it was 0.6 millimeters thicker than intended. And what that did was cause those discs to not glide as much as we had hoped. Well, once we made the lace, we realized what was going on. Mm-hmm. But with the ascent and track, we didn't quite understand why they didn't go as far as we had hoped that they would go. So we made the lace, and it took a long time, probably over 3 years, to develop the lace. A lot of crazy ideas were tried, and we ended up back in the fold of where everybody ends up. But once we did that, once we made the lace, which with an insanely thin flight plate, plus the height of the flashing, then we realized what happened with the ascent and the track. And as soon as we completed our distance drivers and got the mids, the next step for me was to make the fairway drivers that I knew that we could always make. Okay. And so we went back and revised the fairway driver lineup and made so now we have the Notch, Arch, Valley, Vamp, and Onyx going from massively over to massively understable. And once we had those, in my opinion, the Ascent and Track were inferior products as far as the intent. And so we removed them from the market.
Well, you know what? I'm going to have to try out all of the other ones now because the only one I've really thrown is I think I just bought a Onyx and Ibex, and I think that's what I got. I ordered those two last night.
Very good.
So I look forward to throwing those. I also want to mention that with your blessing, we're currently giving away a Disc Golf Pro Tour Vibram lace through the Zen Disc Golf Facebook this week. So right now, with the Disc Golf Pro Tour stamp on it. What a great looking disc, and we're giving that away. This podcast should go out tomorrow. And if you go to Zen Disc Golf on Facebook and you enter that contest, just share the post, like the post, and comment on it. You got a chance to win by Friday. Let's see, what's the date of Friday? The 27th is when we'll be giving that Vibram Disc Golf Pro Tour stamp lace. So if you're not following Zen Disc Golf, go over there and follow it and enter to win that. And it's a super cool chance to win a super cool disc. Steve, did you have anything else that you wanted to go over today?
I would love to hit on a couple of things real quick. The first is we're just starting to give everybody a little sneak peek as to the instant scoring and statistics that UDisc has been developing. If you haven't had a chance, well, actually, we'll release the video tomorrow, Tuesday, for the instant stats on our YouTube and Facebook pages. So I'll just say stay tuned and enjoy seeing little snippets of what it is that we're going to be doing. We're expanding the statistics to be Circle 1, which is 0 to 10 meters, and Circle 2, which is 10 to 20 meters. In our opinion, Circle 1 putting for the top guys is always going to be 90 to 95%. And Circle 2 putting is going to be, I think, the differentiator. Somebody that hits 20% versus somebody that hits 50%. That's going to be the place that the Rickies and the Pauls and the Wills and all the top guys are gaining strokes on people, is that Circle 2 putting, in my opinion. We'll see if that bears out. But so anyway, we're expanding the statistics that are collected, and it's all going to be real time during the live broadcast. So
that's really cool.
You'll even be able to watch it in the app, where if you hold your phone or tablet landscape, you'll see it'll be full screen video that Smashbox is providing of each event, of each round. The fun thing is, if you turn your phone or tablet portrait, then the video will fill up the top 30%, 40%. And then at the bottom of the screen will be scoring and stats that you can scroll through, and you'll be able to have both of them on your screen, which has been the holy grail of what we've been trying to build forever. And the UDisc guys figured it out. And that's a really exciting feature. Another thing that I wanted to hit on is the festival itself for the Pro Tour. Okay. We've got a lot of great manufacturer partners. I'll go ahead and just say they're two things in one, and each one of them is sponsoring a different type of game at the Pro Tour events, which is going to make up our festival. We just finished construction of DGA's Disc Tac-Toe. And you can go to
that looks really cool.
Yeah, so you could include a link to that, because that was a lot of fun to put together, and we've money makes things even more exciting. But we've had some pretty exciting finishes on Disc Tac-Toe with $5 and $10 on the line, and then Prodigy, Discraft, Daredevil, Vibram, Legacy. They're all going to have other festival games where basically you take a disc and you knock something down, or you take a disc and you try to tell me how fast you're going to throw it, or you try to always throw faster than the next guy. We've got inflatables. We'll have disc dyeing. We'll have face painting. We've got the blue-orange games. We'll have a Tribaloid video game demo, and tons more. There's going to be lots of activities for disc golf gearheads, as well as family and friends that want to see what in the world we're talking about when we talk about disc golf.
That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, the goal is to get people to come and watch this sport and get more and more people playing this sport. Absolutely.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Zen Disc Golf Podcast. It's truly been an honor to talk to you, and I really hope you stay in contact, and hopefully we can get you back on the show, talk even more, pick your brain about things. I mean, we didn't even talk about Maple Hill or course construction and all the things we always have questions about. But yeah, hopefully we get you back on, and when things kind of die down for you. Everybody make sure you go to discgolfprotour.com and check out just what a blast this Pro Tour is going to be. And then again, as always, zendiscgolf.com. Make sure you check out Facebook and our Facebook and try to win that Vibram lace, the Disc Golf Pro Tour Vibram lace. And as always, just throw.
Just watch. Thank you, Patrick.